Hey, Interpreting the Bible. So glad to be with you this block and studying with you. Here we are in session 2, and we're discovering the context of your passage, the background. In particular, one of the main things as a part of this is the historical background of your paper. And so this is an extremely important piece of understanding the passage and for yourself and giving it fuller meaning and a more complete meaning, but then also for your hearers and readers, so that when you write or when you maybe preach a sermon or teach a lesson, that this historical background and context can truly shape and give much greater meaning to your passage. And so let me just share an example with you. Recently, I taught a passage on Matthew chapter 16 where Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do you say I am?" And so a part of the background of this passage is the previous chapters. So in the previous chapters, we see that Jesus has fed the 5,000. Jesus walked on water. Jesus calmed a storm. Jesus drove out demons, and Jesus healed people. So all these miracles stack upon each other. And in the midst of all this, the regular people of the day, the regular Sallys and Joes and all this, the regular families that come and are part of Jesus' ministry, that's heard his teaching, are beginning to say, hey, we want this Jesus to be our next leader, to be our next king. He's different than anyone else we've ever seen or anyone else we've ever heard. And the religious leaders of the day on the other side are threatened by the authority with which Jesus teaches and the crowds which gather around Jesus. And they can see that he's gaining momentum and that his church is bigger than their church. And so there's this great animosity begins, and so they begin to plot to kill him. And so here we see at the end of chapter 16, Jesus takes his group of disciples, his small group of 12, and they get away to the north in Caesarea Philippi. And Caesarea Philippi is an interesting place. It's a very spiritual city. There's Baal temples all over, so there's idol worship, and you go into the temple and you worship. So those are spread all over the city. There's also temples to the Pan god, to the god of Pan, which is a god of nature, and that's a Greek and Roman god. And then also Philip, who renamed the city Caesarea Philippi, created a temple to the worship of Caesar. And so Philip is a Jewish leader, and as a Jewish leader, he creates this temple to worship Caesar, which is probably not right? And so here he is creating this temple, and so you have this background of lots of places and lots of opportunities to worship. And then Jesus walks into this city, and from what we understand, was just totally unrecognized. No one understood who he was, or maybe the stories of his ministry hadn't got there yet. There wasn't photographs of Jesus being passed around, and so Jesus and his disciples get to the city of Caesarea Philippi, this extremely spiritual place, and Jesus asks them the question, "Who do the people say that I am?" And they tell him, hey, some say that you're a great prophet and a great teacher. And then Jesus asks his disciples, well, who do you, the disciples that have seen all of these miracles, the guys that have been with me for the last almost 3+ years, who do you say I am? And this crazy guy named Peter speaks up and he says, you are the Messiah, the Son of God. And so, which is a very personal revelation. Jesus even says, hey, the only way that you can make that claim is that it's been revealed to you by God himself. And so a great passage, but that passage has greater meaning and greater understanding, fuller meaning for us when we understand that passage in context of all that Jesus has been doing, all of Jesus' ministry, and even the city of Caesarea Philippi. So my challenge to you is that as you dig in and you study about the context of your passage in Ephesians and you kind of study a little bit more about it, do not just kind of go over the history, but dig into some of those things and ask yourself the question, what does this add to the passage? How does this give fuller meaning to this passage that I'm studying? And what can it mean for myself as a personal follower of Jesus, but also what can it mean to my hearers and my readers of this passage as well? So hey, good luck studying. I hope that you enjoy this part of biblical interpretation as much as I do. God's blessings on you this week.